Jennifer from Fiber Flux. Welcome back to week 3 of the 2019 Fiber Flux Spring Crochet Along. We have been hard at work on our Flowering Herbs shawl. This is a beautiful spring shawl, and as you can see, I'm working on mine as well. Today, we're going to be working on these gorgeous puff stitch flowers. These are really the main focal point of this shawl. So last week we did the V-stitch sections, and if you missed that, I'll put the links down below so you can go back. Now these tutorials will be up forever, so you can always go back and really go at your own pace. So last week we did the linen section of V-stitches. It's kind of like the neutral in between panels of the flowers that we're creating. And we also did a row of V-stitch in green to represent the leaves and the stems of our flowers. So today we're going to be jumping right in and tackling these puff stitch flowers. Now I've made mine in bright pink and yellow and purple. Obviously you can pick any colors that you like, but I did lots of different springy colors. If you haven't joined the Ravelry Crochet Along group, be sure and hop over there. I'll put the link down below, and that is our community of makers that work on the crochet alongs together. You can share photos, you can get advice from other people, you can ask questions. There's lots of people that answer questions as well. You can show off your work. So hop on over and do that. And also, if you share your photos on social media of your work in progress, use the hashtag fiberfluxcal, and I'll put that above. And that way, when you click on the link, the hashtag link, you can see collectively what everybody's been working on, including your own if you use the tag as well. So check that out, and we're going to jump right into the tutorial and learn how to make these pretty flowers. I have here what we worked on last week. So just to recap, we worked the V-stitch for the whole part of week 2. We worked rows 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6 in the linen colorway to give us like a base or a ground. And then we worked the same V-stitch in this green polo colorway to create some leaves for our flowers. So I left off here where we left off last week, and we are going to continue on this week with some puff stitch flowers. These are super easy to do, and they look really pretty, and they give a little texture to your shawl. I did mention last week also that you only need one ball for your flower color. So we have 2 balls of the linen, just to recap, for this section in between our flowers. And then we have the green for the leaf color, and then you need one ball of the green, and then 1 ball for your flower color. But I did mention I'm going to be adding other flower colors just to make it really springy and bright and multicolor. So we have the fairy tale is this hot pink. This pretty yellow is called Mimosa, and then the purple is Vineyard. So you can just use one or all of these. It's totally up to you. And we are using a 5mm H crochet hook also. So what we need to do to begin this week is to switch colors. We're not going to be using the green this week. We're just going to be sticking to these bright flower colors. So go ahead and cut the yarn and wrap it around your hook and pull it all the way through. Now, when I switch colors, I prefer to just cut the yarn and tie the new color right on. If you have a preferred way that you like to join yarn and switch colors, obviously feel free to do that. It's your project, and you can really do it any way you like. I'm going to grab the fairy tale. We're going to make our row with that, and then I'll switch to other flower colors later on. But if you've never done a puff stitch, it's super easy. I'm going to walk you through it every step of the way. So where you fastened off with this knot, you're going to insert into that last stitch. See that last loop of our row? I'm going to go ahead and zoom in so we can really get a good look at that. So that last stitch of our row here, we're going to insert our hook, and then we're going to hook the new yarn right on there and pull the new yarn through. And then go ahead and tie that right on with a secure knot. It doesn't have to be a huge knot, but just twice is just perfectly fine. Okay, we're going to worry about these ends later on in week 4, so we can just get those right out of the way. So then what you're going to do is grab your hook and insert it back into that same stitch, bring up a loop, and then we're going to continue on with, this will be row 8. So remember we did 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 in the linen in the V-stitch. And then row 7 was V-stitch in the green. So row 8, we're going to work our puffs. So what we want to do is chain 3, 1, 2, 3, and you can just see already how that pink just pops against that green. Then we're going to turn our work. So what we want to do is we're going to work 2 puff stitches into each V, and that's going to give us a nice textured, really pretty flower. So what we want to do is to create the first puff stitch, and I'm going to go nice and slow at the beginning, and then like we normally do, we'll pick up speed, okay? So what we're going to do is wrap yarn around hook and insert it into the center of that V, that chain 1 space, and bring up a loop. You'll have 3 loops on your hook. Then you're going to wrap yarn around hook one more time, insert it back into that same V, bring up a loop. You'll have 5 loops on your hook this time. Wrap yarn around hook one more time, bring up a loop, and then you'll have 7 loops on your hook. Now I like to do this thing where I kind of like wiggle the yarn just to get everything nice and straightened out. And then wrap yarn around hook, and you're going to bring it through all 7 loops that are on your hook. And then you're going to chain 1 to close the stitch, and you'll have this little cute little puff stitch. And we're going to work 1 more into that V, okay? So let's do that one more time. Into the same V you just did, wrap yarn around hook, insert the hook into the center of the V, wrap yarn around hook, bring up a loop. You'll have 3 loops on your hook. Wrap yarn around hook, insert it back into the V, bring up a loop. You'll have 5 loops on your hook. Wrap yarn around hook, reinsert it back into the V one last time. You'll have 7 loops on your hook. Give it a little shake just to neaten it up. Wrap yarn around hook, bring it through all 7 loops, and chain 1 to close the stitch. So now we have this puffy little flower that looks really pretty. So let's do a couple of these together. Now I went really slow on that first one. Let's pick up a little bit of speed. Wrap yarn around hook, insert it into the next V, bring up a loop, 3 loops are on the hook. Wrap yarn around hook, insert it back into V, bring up a loop, 5 loops are on the hook. Wrap yarn around hook, insert it into the V one last time, bring up a loop, 7 loops are on the hook. Give it a little wiggle to straighten it out. Wrap yarn around hook, bring it through all 7 loops, and then work a chain to close the top of the stitch. Now working into that same V, we're going to do 1 more. Wrap yarn around hook, insert it into the V, bring up a loop, 3 loops. Wrap yarn around hook, insert it into the V again, 5 loops. Wrap yarn around hook, insert it into the V one more time, bring up a loop, 7 loops are on your hook. Wrap yarn around hook, bring through all 7 loops, and close it with a chain. Just like that. We're starting to get some really beautiful little flowers. Okay, moving right along. We'll do a few more of these together. All right, wrap yarn around hook, go into the next V, bring up a loop, 3 loops, 5 loops, 7 loops, give it a little wiggle, wrap yarn around hook, bring it through all 7 loops. I like to do that nice and slow so it doesn't snag on anything. Into the same V, go back in, 3 loops, 5 loops, 7 loops, give it a little wiggle, bring it through all those loops, and chain 1. Okay, we're starting to get some beautiful flowers. I just love the way those look. Okay, next V, let's do that again. Work 2 puff stitches into that next V, 3 loops, 5 loops, 7 loops. Again, if you want to see this slowly, just back up the video a little bit, and you can watch it as many times as you need. Bring it through all 7 loops, and chain 1. In that same V, work another puff stitch. Bring it through all 7 loops. That wiggle really helps it loosen up. Sometimes we don't have an easy time getting our hook through all those loops, but if you give that just that little wiggle right before you do it, it helps so much. All right, 3 loops, 5 loops, 7 loops in that next V, and chain to close the stitch. Work your next one, 3 loops, 5 loops, 7 loops, and through all 7 stitches, just like that, okay? I'm going to keep working my puff stitches all the way across the row, and then we'll rejoin, and I'll show you how to finish off the row, and then the rest of our shawl, we're just going to be repeating this section over and over. So I'm going to get you started on the next row. So we're going to be repeating rows 2 through 8 to finish off the shawl, but we'll get to that a little bit more in just a moment. But for now, let's finish up our puff stitch flowers. Okay, I'm just working that last flower of our row. 3 loops, 5 loops, 7 loops. Bring it through all 7 loops and chain 1. And then we're going to do one more in that V stitch. 3 loops, 5 loops, 7 loops, give it a wiggle. And then another thing that helps a lot is when you wrap your yarn around hook, turn your hook all the way upside down like this when you bring it through. Make sure it's pointing straight down. And then chain 1, okay? So here are our flowers. Aren't they cheerful and just so pretty? Okay, so to finish the row, what we're going to do is just work a double crochet in the top of that turning chain from the previous row. So that green right there, just going to go in that topmost chain and work a double crochet. Whoops, work a double crochet. Just like that. All right, so there is our pattern repeat. So for the rest of your shawl, you're just going to repeat rows 2 through 6. So we're not going to work row 1 again because we already did that for, we worked into the chains. So that's not a row we need to do. So rows 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Now I'm going to get you started on the next row just because we're working into the centers of the puffs and not the V's. It'll be just slightly different, but just cut the yarn. Let me zoom out so you can see me do this part. Wrap yarn around hook, pull it through like we've been doing. And I'm just going to get you started with row 2 again. So grab your linen. We're going to go back to the linen. We can get all this other yarn out of the way. Now for other flower rows, when I continue, I'm going to do the next one in the next color, the next one in the next color, and then go back to pink, and we'll set up an order for that. So you'll be able to see those next week. Okay, so back into where we fastened off that last stitch of the row, same thing we've been doing. Hook the new yarn onto your hook, pull it through, tie it right on. Again, if you have a way you prefer to do this, feel free. Same thing as before. And we're going to get these tails out of the way and insert your hook back into that. Let me zoom back in for you. There you go. Okay, so back into that stitch, bring up a loop, and once again, we're going to chain 3. 1, 2, 3, because remember, we're just repeating row 2. And we're just going into the center of our puff. So our puffs actually create a V also, because we have 2 of them, and you can go right into the center. So what we're going to do is work a V in between each of the 2 puffs. Okay, so work a double crochet in between, and then chain 1, and then another double crochet right in the middle of those puff stitches. Okay, so it'll just look like that. So you have your ground, your leaves, your flower, and then we're going to start another ground again to have our other flowers grow into that one. Okay, let's go into the next one. Go in between those puffs, and if you need to pull them apart, sometimes it's easier to see. Go in between, work a double crochet, chain 1, double crochet. We're just repeating row 2, but we're working it in between the puffs. And I put a little note about that, how it's we're not working into the V's when we do row 2 anymore. It changes a little bit. So what I thought would be helpful is just to have a little note in there. In case you're following the written pattern as well, you can see that note. Okay, so we're just working our V's right in the middle of those puff stitches. Okay, so I just wanted to get you started on this row, but you'll just finish that and then work rows 2 through 8 over and over and over again until your shawl is as long as you would like it to be, or you get to 60 inches. I'm going to make mine go to about 60 inches because I like that length for a shawl, but it's totally up to you. And I know we talked about multiples at the beginning of the CAL. You can make this into a scarf. You can make it really short and seam it together and make a cowl if you like. So just keep repeating rows 2 through 8 over and over and over again until your shawl is as long as you would like it to be. Now next week already, I can't believe it, is week 4, and we're going to do some finish work. We're going to deal with these ends, and we're also going to add a few finishing touches to our shawl. So join me next week for week 4, and if you're not a member of the Ravelry Crochet Along group, I'll put the link down below for that, but you can join that group to see what all the other makers are doing. If you have questions, it's a really wonderful community of makers who are all working on the Crochet Along. We also have a bunch of other crochet alongs going on now that last the whole year through, so check those out too. I will see you next week for week 4, where we're going to wrap it all up. Thanks so much for watching, and be sure and click the subscribe button to get all the latest Fiber Flux video updates. Thanks again.